Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hi, you are very welcome. This is Reading the Past and I'm Dr. Cat. As you can probably hear, I am still a little bit croaky. I am much better than I was the last couple of weeks. I was really very poorly, but it seems to be on the way out. With that being said, I did wake up this morning with what appears to be an eye infection. So if you can just try and ignore what's going on this side of my face, I am going to put up quite a few pictures in this episode because I think no one really needs to see what's going on here for very long. And with that being said, let's hop right in because I have got something I want to talk about today. A fair while back, I made a video exploring the badges and mottos of the 6 wives of King Henry VIII. I will leave that video linked. In the comments of that video, I was asked if I could make a similar video exploring the arms, badges, symbols and mottos of Henry VIII's children. So for our purposes, I'm only going to look at the children that King Henry VIII acknowledged, whether they were legitimate or otherwise. So without further ado, let's see what we can find out. On the 1st of January 1511, King Henry VIII and Queen Katherine of Aragon welcomed a son. The boy was named Henry for his father. From his birth, as he was the eldest son of the English king, this little Henry was Duke of Cornwall. This had been the title customarily held by the heir to the throne since the Duchy of Cornwall was originally created in 1337 by King Edward III for his son and heir, Edward the Black Prince. The current Duke of Cornwall is Prince William, and he has held that title since his father's accession to the throne as King Charles III in 2022. For Henry and Catherine's son, little Henry, this meant that from the moment he was born, he was connected to the arms of the Duchy of Cornwall, this being a sable or black shield that's adorned with 15 golden circles, also known as bezants. These seem to replicate coins. However, according to J.R. Planchet, in the case of the arms of the Duke of Cornwall, this, quote, is no representation of coins, but of peas, pois, being the arms of Poitiers or Poitou, of which he was Earl. There is no evidence that Henry, Duke of Cornwall, was ever designated as Prince of Wales, which is the other title that's commonly held by the eldest son and heir of the monarch. This is in spite of the fact that Henry's birth was celebrated with the extravagant tournament that is memorialised in the Westminster tournament roll. Sadly, little Henry, Duke of Cornwall, would die from unknown causes around 10 days after this tournament took place. At that point, he was not yet 2 months old. Before we look at Henry VIII's children that would survive him and rule after him, let's take a look at his acknowledged son, Henry Fitzroy. Fitzroy was the king's natural but illegitimate son by Elizabeth Blount, who was born in 1519. When Fitzroy was around 6 years old, his father saw to it that he was raised in the peerage through the unrivalled honour of a double dukedom. Fitzroy was made Duke of Richmond and Somerset. These titles connected him to his paternal family. His grandfather, King Henry VII, had been Earl of Richmond, while the Somerset title linked all the way back through the Beaufort line to the son of John of Gaunt. The title of Richmond is linked to the White Greyhound of Richmond, and thus to ideas of bravery and loyalty, while the Beaufort beast was a Yale, a symbol of strong defence. In the same year that he was granted this double dukedom, Fitzroy also became a Knight of the Garter, and this allowed him to encircle his heraldic shield with a garter. As we can see, on this garter is the motto of the order, Honi soit qui mal y pense, which translates to shame on him who thinks evil of it. I have made a video on this particular chivalric order and its history, which I will be leaving linked. As we can see, Henry Fitzroy's shield, also called an escutcheon, is pretty densely decorated. It is quartered with the Lions of England and the Fleur-de-Lis of France. This is in common with the shield of his father, the king. Fitzroy's shield is however bordered, and that border is also quartered, with the first quarter being ermine, the fur that was reserved for the upper echelons of the nobility and for royalty. The rest of the border is an alternating band of squares of gold and blue. These are colours that connect to chivalry, nobility, and fidelity. The silver band or baton that runs diagonally across the shield, which is known as a baton sinister, based upon the direction in which it's travelling. These were frequently used to designate the illegitimacy of the individual who is being represented by the arms in question. The inclusion of an overlaid shield, which we see being used here, is a way of differentiating between individuals, usually by connecting them to a name, title or role that they have. In the overlaid shield we have a lion, which as king of beasts is commonly used as a royal symbol. The tower is linked to protection and piety, while the stags represent peace and protection as well. The stag was frequently viewed as being a fairly calm animal, one that would not fight unless it was pushed to do so. However, when it was so pushed, it was thought to prove to be devastatingly effective. Fitzroy's gartered shield is topped by a ducal crown or coronet. According to John and Rosemary Pinches, when Fitzroy's arms were displayed with supporters, those supporters were, on the dexter side, a lion with a ducal crown around its neck with a gold chain, and on the sinister side, a silver heraldic antelope adorned with bezants or coins, with a gold coronet and a chain around its neck. However, I have not come across an extant version of these arms that show these supporters in place. When Fitzroy died in 1536, he was 17 and childless. Thus, his titles, his badges and his arms became extinct. A little over a year after Fitzroy's death, Henry VIII's third wife and queen, Jane Seymour, would give birth to their son Edward. Like his short-lived brother Henry, Edward was also entitled to be styled as Duke of Cornwall from his birth, although, like Henry, he was also never formally invested as Prince of Wales, that other title which since the start of the 14th century had been commonly bestowed upon the heir to the English throne. Edward was eligible to make use of the imagery connected to that title prior to his accession to the throne, that imagery being the 3 ostrich feathers that are most commonly called the Prince of Wales feathers today. The origins of this badge are hotly debated. It may connect to the jousting shield of Edward the Black Prince. He may have taken up the ostrich feathers as a way of paying homage to his mother, Philippa of Hainault. She was descended from the Counts of Hainault, and within this dynasty the eldest sons were known as the Counts of Ostravent, and so it is suggested that the ostrich feathers may be a heraldic pun on the name Ostravent. Perhaps, though, the most popular story about the connection between these feathers and the Prince of Wales is that they are said to memorialise the Black Prince's victory at Crecy, and in particular his capturing of the ostrich feather adorned helmet of his enemy John I of Bohemia. Certainly, the motto that now goes with these feathers was John of Bohemia's, namely Ich dien, meaning I serve. As king, Edward VI used his father's achievement of arms, a shield quartered with the lions of England and the fleur-de-lis of France, surrounded by the garter circlet. This is topped with the crowned royal helm, which has itself got a crowned lion on top of that. It is mantled in golden ermine. The armorial supporters are a crowned lion on the right, or the dexter side, and the red dragon of Cadwallader on the left, or sinister side. The dragon of Cadwallader had been used by Edward's grandfather, King Henry VII, as a reminder of his Welsh origins, and his claimed descent from that famed king of Gwynedd, Cadwallader. The traditional motto on these arms is visible: Dieu est mon droit, God and my right. This is a reference to what they believe supported and made possible their rule over their people. Edward VI also made use of other symbols. We have encountered the white greyhound of Richmond before. In addition, he made use of a golden harp. The harp has long been used to symbolise Ireland, but it also connotes a person of temperate judgment. In addition, harps are the instruments of heaven and of the angels. Thus, they connect to faith and to notions of the divine. And as such, it might have been a useful symbol for a young king who, along with his advisors, was seeking to remake the faith of his nation in the reformed manner that he deemed to be the best. Edward also used a golden portcullis, commonly referred to as the Beaufort portcullis. This symbol may have been intended to remind people of his connection to Margaret Beaufort, and more importantly, to her royal blood, upon which Edward's grandfather, King Henry VII, grounded his claim to the throne. Unsurprisingly, Edward also used a Tudor rose. This was something he would share with his other royal family members. He also deployed the sun in splendour. This was a favoured symbol of his great-grandfather, King Edward IV. It represents glory and perhaps also a sense of hope. Is it perhaps a reminder that Edward is a new day for the Tudor line, with the promise of sons to follow him once he became a man? If this was the intended significance of the sun in splendour symbol, it would prove to be a forlorn hope. Edward died childless on the 6th of July, 1553. The next of King Henry VIII's children to take up his throne was his eldest daughter by Katherine of Aragon, Mary. Mary had been born on the 18th of February, 1516. When she became queen, she used the same arms as her brother and her father. However, on occasion, the white greyhound of Richmond would support her arms rather than the dragon. After Mary I's marriage to Philip II of Spain, the royal arms would also, on occasion, incorporate his eagle. Mary chose for her motto, Veritas Temporis Filia, or Truth is the daughter of time. Mary may well have felt that there had been multiple deceptions that had affected her life, from the nullification of her parents' marriage, to her being made illegitimate, to the separation of England from Rome and the denial of papal authority, to the temporary accession of Jane Grey to the throne rather than Mary, and that's to name just a few. Now, though, time had passed. Mary was 37 years old. She was Queen of England, and she could restore the truth of things, at least as far as she saw them. Like her brother, Mary used the symbols of the portcullis, the Tudor rose, and the harp. Presumably, though, if she was seeking to invoke the divine and notions of faith with the use of the harp, that's going to be in line with her Roman Catholic beliefs rather than her brother's Protestant faith. In a similar vein, Mary also deployed this symbol. We see a holy altar. Upon it is a sword, likely a sword of justice. It stands upright on top of the altar. In seeking to return England into obedience with the Holy See of Rome, Mary viewed herself as acting justly, as if she was wielding that sword of justice. However, the sword that we are seeing is placed atop an altar, and altars are sacrificial spaces, just as swords are weapons. Is this symbol then perhaps also a promise, maybe even a threat, of just how far Mary was prepared to go in the name of her faith? Queen Mary I also made use in various forms of her mother's badge, the pomegranate. The pomegranate is a fruit filled with seeds, and this made it an ideal representation of a promise of fertility. And Mary was certainly hopeful that her marriage to Philip II would prove to be fruitful, that she would, like the pomegranate, be full of potential life, and in particular, with a Roman Catholic heir for her throne. In this, though, she was to be disappointed. Mary died at 42 years old in 1558. She would be followed on the throne by her Protestant half-sister, the daughter of Anne Boleyn, Elizabeth. Elizabeth was born on September the 7th, 1533. She came to the throne on November the 17th, 1558, meaning that at that time she was 25 years old. Elizabeth used the same achievement of arms as her siblings and her father. Like her sister, though, these supporters would sometimes change. Occasionally, the white greyhound of Richmond would support her arms rather than the dragon. Additionally, on occasion, the red dragon would be exchanged for a golden one. Elizabeth took Semper Eadem as her motto, which translates to always the same. Around a century later, another monarch, Queen Anne, would take on this same motto as her own. On the aptness of this motto for Elizabeth, I think many of her advisers might muster a wry smile at the idea she was always the same. Rather, I think Elizabeth was frequently a mercurial, slippery equivocator, and she was this in a variety of matters. However, many others might point out that this is a very apt motto for this queen who would never marry, never bear children, and, at least if we look at her portraiture alone, would seemingly never grow old. Like the rest of her family, Elizabeth made extensive use of symbols and badges throughout her reign, and I have made dedicated videos on these symbols that I will be leaving linked. Like her other family members, Elizabeth deployed the Tudor rose, the portcullis, and the harp. She also used her mother's emblem of a crowned falcon holding a golden sceptre. The sceptre and the crown are signs of royal authority, while the falcon is a bird of prey known for its resolute determination to achieve its aims. Anne's falcon was perched on a tree stump, from which red and white roses bloomed. This was apparently Anne's promise, that she would bring forth new life to reinvigorate the barren stump of the Tudor dynasty. At the time, her promise had been her potential to provide Henry VIII with a son and heir. In actuality, what she gave him was Elizabeth. Elizabeth was that dynasty's last, and some would argue, most successful monarch. Elizabeth also used a symbol that had previously been used by her first stepmother, Jane Seymour. Elizabeth deployed the phoenix, a symbol of resurrection, eternal life, and sacrifice, because, of course, the old phoenix must burn itself down to ash so that a new phoenix could rise out of those ashes. Elizabeth would also use the pelican for similar sacrificial significance, as it was once believed that the pelican pecked her own breast until it bled so that she could feed her young. Last but by no means least, Elizabeth also used sieves as powerful symbols. These were intended to remind the audience of the story of those Roman Vestal virgins who were so inviolate in their virginity that they were said to be able to carry water in a sieve without spilling a single drop. Thus, the symbol of the sieve, when it's being used in images connected to Elizabeth, is, I think, working in two ways. Firstly, it's reminding the audience of the constant virginal state of their queen, but it's also connecting her rule and her nation to the aspirational state of the classical world of imperial Rome. At least, it was aspirational as far as early modern England was concerned. So what do you think of these symbols? How effective do you think they would have been? Do you have any particular favourites? As always, I'm looking forward to reading your conversations in the comments section underneath this video, but I'd also love it if you could pop an emoji or a social glyph in the comments too, because that will help to boost the engagement, and the more engagement a video gets, the more YouTube apparently shares it out, and that should help us to grow our community. I'm thinking there have been lots of symbols mentioned today, so maybe you find an emoji version of one of those, maybe a lion or a unicorn or some such. You can also find me elsewhere on social media. I will leave links to all the places you can find me on the internet in my description box. Please do follow me over on some or all of those so we can continue this conversation and start some others. I do hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, please share it with your friends. If you like my channel, let some pals know about it. You can tell me about this video in particular by hitting the thumbs up. Please do subscribe to the channel, and if you think you are subscribed, have a check to make sure you've not been unsubscribed against your will. While you are there, checking, subscribing, maybe resubscribing, please do hit the bell icon that sits beside the subscribe button and select all in the drop down that will appear, and that way YouTube claim they will tell you when I'm next uploaded, but also when I'm next going to go live, which I will do to talk about the history news, and you are not going to want to miss that. We have, of course, got our failsafe. Head over to my website, it will be linked. It is www.katrinamarchant.com. If you head to the contact page of that website, you will see a box. Put your email address in that box, hit submit, and that will let me send you out an email once a week to let you know what I've been up to, but also to send you useful links to my content for the coming days. I hope you're going to have a great day whatever you're doing, and I look forward to speaking to you all in my next video. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye for now.